The reason why I'm still thinking about Polkadot as of right now, even though nothing I say is financial advice, is because I like the fundamentals of Polkadot, and not only that, actually DOT back in October reached a new all-time low, which some people may be thinking, okay, that seems kind of counterintuitive, but in my perspective, the way I take a look at it is that when it comes to DOT reaching a new all-time low, is that necessarily such a bad thing if I am trying to dollar cost average? I don't think so. However, I cannot speak on anyone's behalf. This is just my perception when it comes to this. Not to mention, I take a look at Polkadot 2.0, which granted hasn't had the most attention, but I think it's pretty cool and pretty interesting that they even bothered with something like that in the first place, even though the market conditions are clearly not doing the best when it comes to altcoins. Not to mention, when I take a look at it, I feel like ever since 2021, there's been a lot more blockchains that became popular, right? But the thing is, how is this arguably, I think, not such a bad thing when it comes to Polkadot? Well, it's because Polkadot is literally the way you take a look at it, trying to connect blockchains together. So if there's actually more of the things that it actually wants to connect, how is that such a bad thing? That's the way you take a look at it. Now, granted, I don't think Polkadot is going to be arguably like the hypothetical most well known or something like that, but does it really need to? I don't think so. Because, yeah, sure, $50, we're around 22 times lower than that. But the thing is, actually, at the hypothetical idea of $50, the market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be around 82 billion. In which case, we've seen BNB exceed that by around 20 billion back in 2021, and that was years ago. Now, granted, BNB did achieve a new all-time high during this cycle, which DOT clearly hasn't. Actually, DOT during this cycle achieved a new all-time low, but I'm just saying, like for something like Polkadot, which arguably I don't think has that many kind of dynamic competitors, I don't know if that would necessarily be such a surprising event to me if I did see that. And this actually brings me to my second point, which is a lot of layer one blockchains out there, which if let's say something else that is more dynamic, a little bit faster, a little bit kind of more revolutionary pops up, it could kind of overtake another layer one blockchain that may not have those type of features, right? But then when it comes to Polkadot, because it is attempting to connect blockchains together, it is kind of a little bit impervious, I think, to kind of new competition in some cases where it feels like there are so many competitors and it's kind of easily being taken over, if that makes sense. Because my point of view is this. If I take a look at this space, which Polkadot is focused on, which I would arguably say is interoperability, again, it's focused on the space of connecting blockchains together, we have to consider what are really the top players within this space, right? If I take a look at something like Axelar, for instance, Axelar's market cap is just way lower than Polkadot, or should I say DOT, its native token. But the thing is, when it comes to AXL, which is Axelar's native token, I just don't know if it could even ever overtake DOT. You know what I mean? Even though it's kind of pretty much focused on the same things. Again, arguably, Polkadot is trying to connect blockchains together, and then when I take a look at Axelar, it's basically kind of giving me that same vibe. That's the way to take a look at it. But again, who's the competitor, or should I say, really the direct competitor when it comes to Polkadot? What is kind of trying to overtake it for the number one spot within its space that it's focused on? I don't know. Beyond Axelar, really. Like, I have a hard time believing that that could hypothetically overtake Polkadot in terms of popularity. Unlike other market sectors out there, by the way, in which case, a project may be top five for a couple of months and then it changes and then it changes and it keeps changing, right? But then within the interoperability space, ever since 2021, what really has kind of popped up that kind of is challenging Polkadot in that way? I haven't found any, actually, because nothing, I think, became as massive as Polkadot within the interoperability space. I don't know if anything actually is arguably perceived to be more established. And then also on top of that, we take a look at Polkadot 2.0. Not only has Polkadot been around for quite a while, not only is it kind of the most recognizable, arguably, I think, within that interoperability space, but then it's even looking to improve. Now, granted, I don't know how many people asked for Polkadot 2.0. None of my friends that I know that believe in Polkadot even asked or even thought about something like that. But I'm just saying, sometimes projects that are this massive, they get kind of a little bit complacent, right? They just don't really care anymore. But Polkadot, even though they're already kind of arguably the most established and most popular within the interoperability space, they're still caring about even improving. So I find that pretty fascinating. It's not like they necessarily had to do it. However, again, I do find that pretty cool and interesting to me. And the thing is, unlike other projects out there, Polkadot actually has a little bit of a support system. That's what I like to call it. And this kind of quote unquote support system, the way I view it is something like Kusama. Kusama, I get it. It's not doing the best as of right now. But then the thing is, when it comes to it, it's kind of like the quote unquote sidekick, I would think, when it comes to Polkadot, because it's kind of like allowing for projects to kind of test out the water, so to speak, before kind of, going to Polkadot. What do I mean by this? A lot of developers that I do see, usually they're going to start off with Kusama first, and then after they kind of test everything out, and then it's quote unquote good to go, so to speak, sometimes they move on later to Polkadot. Now, why is that the case, right? Because supposedly Kusama provides like an environment, I would say, arguably, that is a little bit more economical to rent building space when compared to something like Polkadot, and also on top of that, it is supposedly also easier to make changes on. So let's say a developer wants to start off with Polkadot. They can kind of test out Kusama first, and then later they can move on to Polkadot. They don't necessarily have to do that though, right? I mean, it's not kind of like this quote unquote requirement the way you take a look at it. There's projects on Kusama as well, but I'm just saying, in my point of view, that is, I think, what makes it interesting. Not only is Polkadot, again, arguably the most popular within its space, but then it actually has something like Kusama. So what is Axelar going to do? You know what I mean? I don't know. Now, does Axelar need to become bigger than Polkadot? No, I don't think so. But I'm just saying, I just haven't found another project currently. It could be different though, but personally, I just haven't discovered something that's kind of competing with this for the number one spot within its space. So yeah, that's just the way to take a look at it, which is why I'm still thinking about Polkadot. That's the way I view it. Now, I get it. Bitcoin is currently now around 91 grand, but really we just haven't seen kind of anything that significant happen to altcoins. But if let's say Bitcoin just went back to like 100 grand or something like that, or 110 grand, I feel like maybe the sentiment when it comes to altcoins could be hypothetically a little bit different. Who knows? But I'm just saying, this is my hypothetical perspective. I don't think there's going to be an altcoin season though at that point, but I'm just saying maybe the sentiment could be a little bit better, because even if we just take a look at, like, let's say DOT, right, which is Polkadot's native token. Let's say we take a look at it back in September. The market cap was still around 7 billion. Like right now, or what, hovering around 3.7 billion, around that range. Like sure, going back to a $7 billion market cap is not necessarily a quote-unquote altcoin season type of level, but I'm just saying, like, it's at least way better than right now, Back then, we take a look at DOT, it was kind of hovering around $4, $4.50, all this type of stuff. But then as of right now, again, we're around $2. So if it just went back to the levels it did not too long ago, the sentiment could be hypothetically a little bit different in my perspective. It's not an altcoin season type of level, but I'm just saying the sentiment could be different. So yeah, I'm just still thinking about Polkadot. I mean, granted, when it comes to an altcoin season, I mean, I can't control whether or not hypothetically I do ever see one when it comes to this cycle, but at the same time, I feel like sometimes the way I view it is all I can do is stay patient. That's it. I don't have to though, right? I mean, I could easily not believe in Polkadot. No one is necessarily telling me to do this or something like that. And even if someone did, I'm making my own decisions when it comes to this. But at the same time, I just still arguably am a fan of Polkadot just because of its fundamentals. And I feel like within the space that it's focused on, I just don't know what is kind of challenging it for the first place as of right now. That's just the way to take a look at it. Don't get me wrong, though. I am still a fan when it comes to Axelar. But I kind of have to say it how it is. I just don't think Axelar is ever going to overtake this. This is just my perspective. I mean, who knows? It could in theory, but I don't know. I just hypothetically don't have that mindset as of right now. But also at the same time, DOT, even as of right now, which may seem a little bit kind of counterintuitive, right? But actually, supposedly, it still has over 1 million holders. In which case, it's kind of surprising to see a little bit because what has DOT really done ever since 2022? You know what I mean? Pretty much just gone down, and we saw a new all-time low actually back in October. And even with all that, currently over 1 million holders? Yeah, I mean, I just find that pretty fascinating in my perspective. For a project that hasn't really done much actually for the past couple of years, it's still pretty fascinating for me to see how there's still that many people in Polkadot. But yeah, that's just the way you take a look at it, and I'm just going to be waiting for an altcoin season, if hypothetically it ever even happens, but I'm just saying. I'm still thinking about Polkadot, so I just wanted to make this video and just talk about my feelings, or should I say, an update on my thoughts as of right now when it comes to Polkadot. And I want to say thank you for watching. I hope y'all have a nice day. It's Billy the Captain. I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.